Hello all, welcome back for another video. This video is going to be on Chapter 5 tutorial. In this chapter, you're actually going to have to do two different sketches. And, well, let's just get started. Basically, what these are going to do is, these are going to teach you how to use your constraints. If you did not view the constraints video, please stop this, go back and view that video first so you know what the constraints do. If you view that video and then you come to this one will make a lot more sense, be a lot easier to follow. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to follow along with this partially. I'm not going to follow it to the T. I'm just going to kind of get the point across that they're trying to here. So the first thing we're going to do is telling us to start a sketch and create a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And there we go. So we got our triangle. It's a lot like the one that they have. And the first thing that they really show you, and I demonstrate this in the constraints, but if you do to show constraints and you hover over something, it's telling you have one constraint there. We have 0 constraints on either of these lines. So the only constraint we have is this horizontal line. And I did that purposely, just because that's the way that they did it in the book. So as we move through here, what it's doing is it's showing us how to fix this to a location. So it's using our lock, which is something that I rarely ever use. The lock, I always either make it coincident, some part of this, some midpoint or something coincident with the origin. Or I'll dimension it from the origin, something like that. But rarely will I fix it just anywhere in space. But we're going to do that, and we'll go back and delete it later and kind of follow along with what they're doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that point. So that defines this line, but it doesn't define the rest of these. So we got to work on defining the rest of these. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this line vertical. All right, so that defines this line. And next, I believe what I want to do is I'm going to dimension this one. So they have 2.3 something. I'm just going to make this 2 inches. It doesn't really matter what the dimension is. Actually, I am going to follow what they have because that's what I expect you guys to hand in. So I'll follow what they got going on there. Okay, so now we have a vertical constraint and we have a horizontal constraint and we have a dimension here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension this angle. And that angle is, well, they have it at 30, so they're telling us to make it 45. So we're just going to make that 45. And we are fully constrained now. So we got 2 dimensions. We have a locked constraint. And we have a vertical and horizontal constraint. Okay, so the next thing that it's going to have us do, according to the book, we're going to modify it to 35 degrees. So one of the things that it does is it tells us to basically add another dimension. So we're adding this dimension here, and we're getting this alarm telling us that it's over constraining the sketch. Well, you can either cancel that or you can accept it. So if you accept it, you get a dimension that's in parentheses. Well, what does that mean? And we should know from blueprint classes that just basically means it's a reference dimension. It doesn't control anything. So it will not, changing this number will not change, you actually can't, will not change anything about the shape, the form, or size of this drawing or this sketch. So it's just a reference dimension at this point. So I'm just going to delete that. Don't really need that on there. And it's asking us to change this to 35 degrees. So I'm going to change this to 35. So we can alter that and the whole thing changes. Okay, so the other thing that it asks us to do is get rid of our fixed dimension. So I'm actually just going to right click and I'm going to do show all constraints. I'm going to click on that fix and delete that. So now I should be able to drag this thing pretty much anywhere now. Now depending on which line I click is which direction it's going to allow me to drag it. So that one drags it this way. This one I can drag it up and down. If I pick this point, it really doesn't let me drag anything. I have to click like a line to really get it to drag somewhere. So now that we can drag this thing all around, it has you checking out the auto dimension, which is this here, and we can apply that, and it'll show us that essentially if we create 2 more dimensions for location, we will be fully constrained. I'm not going to keep those. I'm going to remove those and hit done. And at the end of this triangle here, or the end of figuring out where it all goes, it actually has you dimension at 0, 0, which points it right on the origin. But the best way to do that really is just do the coincident command, which is exactly what it has you do at the end of everything. The next thing it does is it has you create a circle. So we can create a circle here. And it's asking us to auto dimension that. Click on auto dimension icon, the sketch panel. Conforms 3 dimensions fully. And yeah, we're not going to actually follow through with it. But let's take a look and see what it does for us. Apply. Yeah, so it locates it. So it gives us 2 dimensions so that it's located. And then it gives us a diameter. But I'm going to remove those and hit done. And we're going to follow the directions on here next. And we're going to make this tangent to here. So as you can see, that makes it tangent. And even though it's tangent, we can actually draw this larger. So I can expand this, this circle, and I can also slide it up and down there, but it will still remain tangent. Let's see here. So the next thing it has us do, it leaves us tangent, but we are going to make it coincident with this center point on the vertical line. So one of the things it's showing you is you can create a constraint through a right click, and we can go to coincident, and I'll pick this, and I'll pick our midpoint, and there we go. So now since I've actually constrained that and made it coincident, it is fully constrained. Basically this center point there and being tangent, that you can't change the size of the circle now. It is defined at that size. So what we need to do is we need to go back and we would need to get rid of that coincident. Hide all constraints, show, where's my show all constraints? There it is. So, so you pick the vertical line, and on your own delete the coincident constraint. We just applied that, and add a coincident constraint between the horizontal. So basically we want to change it from here to here. What we're going to do is take this one and delete it. Oops. Delete it. Delete it. And we can apply it to create constraint, coincident. You can apply it to this line. So now it's coincident to there. I believe it also might have had you get rid of the tangency as well. All right, so let's get rid of that tangency. So I'm going to click on that, delete that, and now we can change this. I also want to get rid of this coincident constraint. Sometimes it's hard to find. You gotta kind of like hover over it. I thought I just had it, but there it is. The reason there's 2 of them, X and Y. So it's constraining it in both directions. All right, so let's get this thing out of there. So I just had to move that a little bit, move my thing because it was snapping to it, my constraint. All right, so it's having us dimension this at, it looks like 7575. So we're going to make it from here to here, 0.75, and from here to here, oopsie, 0.75, and this is a 0.75 circle. And of course they changed this size and I didn't notice that. So there we go. So that's the way our part should look in the end. So we should have a 3-inch, 35 degrees, constrained to the origin, and 3/4 inch hole, constrained 3/4 by 3/4 in from the origin. And then it's asking us to extrude that to a 1/4 inch, 0.25. And there we go. So this is the end of your first file. That's basically all you need to do for this one. So I'm going to name this triangle. Oops. The triangle. And we're going to save that as. Actually, go back. We're going to save that as tutorial 5. Part 1. Save. Okay. So for the next one, this parametric relations, we're going to create a new drawing for that. So, and you're going to need to hand both of these in. So I'm going to create a new sketch, or a new drawing, and then I guess a new part, actually. And then create a new sketch. And it's telling us to create on the XY, so that's cool. We'll do that. And we are going to create a 2-point rectangle. So I'm just going to create a rectangle. And of course, it's having us dimension this thing. Okay, so also a circle. And I'm just going through and seeing what it's having us do. Change overall width to 6 inches, height to 3.6. And observe the location of the circle in relation to the edges of the rectangle. So it's just showing us that it's not moving the circle anywhere. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create the width of the rectangle at 6.0. Let's create the height at 3.6. And edge of the rectangle. Adjust the dimensions back to 5 by 3. So we're going to adjust them back by 5 by 3. Oops. 5.0, check. 3.0. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, looks like it wanted us to add all the dimensions that it had there on that paper. So we're going to do that quick. And I'm going to say this to here is 2.5. From here to here is 1.5. And this is going to be coincident to the center. And we need a 1-inch circle, 1.0. Okay, so there we go. And we're fully constrained down there. So I'm going to move on next. All right, so it's saying click the width of the rectangle to display the edit dimension function. So if we click on that, there's our edit dimension. It's giving us our variable, D0, which it just happens to be the same because I did them in the correct order. So these may not be the same numbers if you didn't do them in the exact same order. So if I would have dimensioned this 3 first, that would have been D0. And then if I did this second, it would have been D1. This would have been D1. So it just orders them from 0 numerically up. And it just depends on what order you do them. And luckily, I did mine the same, so mine are probably going to somewhat match up with the book. Maybe not perfectly. But I kind of hope they don't, because then if you run into that, you'll be able to watch this video and kind of understand what's going on there. Okay. So we're going to escape out of there. Let's see, parametric equation. Okay, so we're going to talk about the equations in here. So this is good. So we're going to click on the horizontal 2.5 dimension. And it's saying click the width dimension. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to click this width dimension. So it's putting my D0 in there. And I'm going to say divided by 2. So basically what that means is it's taking, whoops, I don't want to do that. It's taking my D0. So it's taking that and it's saying, well, whatever value that is, I want to divide it by 2. I want this dimension to be D0 divided by 2. So 5 divided by 2. It's going to end up being 2.5 because that's what it works out. This is 5. We're dividing it by 2. But if this is 6 and we divide it by 2, this is going to automatically change to 3. So what we're doing is creating equations so that it's a parametric equation. Hit check. All right, so see, it's a function. Basically, it's a function of x. So let me just put these out so they're a little bit easier to see. Okay, so let's see if it has let's do another one here. Yeah, D0 divided by 2, fixed 2.5, and click on the width dimension, enter divided by 2. Let's move on to the next page. Okay, so it has us go into here. So it has us go into our tools. Check that, our manage. Come on, there we go. And our function parameters. So these are our functions. These are actually all of our dimensions. It'll list it in this. And you can see here, D2 is actually the one that we defined there, or redefined. D1 is my 3-inch height. D3 is this one, my 1.5 inch. And let's see what it's going to have us do here. I guess actually I was supposed to do that already, but I can enter it here. So I can enter stuff here as well. It had you change this one the same way I changed this one. But for this one, it is going to be, I guess, D1, D3. Yeah, I think that they're mixed up. So this is going to be D1 divided by 2. So now that function is in there. You can see that. Okay, and then the last one that it's having us do is this circle. So it's telling us we want to take it to be D1 divided by, and in their book, D1 is the 3-inch dimension. In mine, it is also 3-inch, so we're good there. Looks like they changed stuff around here a little bit. So D1 divided by 2. Oh, no, I see what they did. So their D2 and D3, these two are flip-flopped. That's why mine don't match up with the book. So that makes sense. Oops. So we want to say D1 divided by 3. My D1 and my D0 are still correct. Function is 1. Okay. So, all right, so we got that finished. Again, I could have edited this the same way just by clicking on this and saying divide by 3. And on your own, change the dimensions to 6 by 3.6. So we'll change this to 3.6, and we'll change this to 6.0. And you can see there, it automatically updates my hole size, automatically keeps my part centered based on, whatever dimension my outside is. And you probably ask yourself, okay, well, what if I just coincident the center of this rectangle, it'll work too. Well, yeah, it will. But this is just a different way of doing it, so you can have a function. This here, on the other hand, there's really no way to do this other than creating this parametric equation. All right, so we're going to save this, and I guess I'll just show you some of this measuring stuff. We're going to extrude it real quick, and I'll show you some of that real quick. So we'll go and hit File. Actually, check that. Let me extrude it. I'm going to save the final file. How thick does it want us to extrude it? Quarter inch. Okay, so we'll go to Model, Extrude, 0.25, Enter. So there we go. There's our part. And let's move on. So the next thing that I'm going to go into is our tools. And we have a measure in here. And I believe that measure is actually in a couple different places. It might be in environments or annotate. No, inspect. Here it is. So it's in inspect and it's in tools. So you can get that in either toolbar. So if I click on the measure and we go to advanced, I can do the dual units and I can actually measure in millimeter and it'll give me, in this case, 0.25 or 6.35 millimeter. So it's a quick way of measuring things on a 3D part. So you can see there it's 6 inches or 152.4 millimeters. So it's kind of nice. And then they just go on and they show you, different things that they're measuring. So from there to there, 6.997, and I get the same thing, 771. They changed their resolution, so you can go to precision and make that 4, and now I get the 1 in there. Angle precision, you can change that so that it's really high, and if you want to do an angle from there to there or something like that, it's giving you 90 degrees. So just know that that's available to you. And the next thing it's going to show us is just our display. So if we go into our view and we go to our visual styles, we can make it shaded. And these are just slight differences here. Realistic, shaded with edges. You can see the edges then. You can do a wireframe, just kind of the edges only. I usually do a shaded with edges, just because I like to be able to see the edges of it, even though that's not realistic. And let me see what else it's having you do here. Essentially, that's really about it. You can measure faces and stuff like that. So we can go back into the measure, and we can measure that face, and it'll tell us the diameter, tell us the area of it, and that kind of stuff. So you can see here, area 0.9. Yeah, see, mine matches theirs. If I measure, oops, I accidentally exited out. If I measure this, my area measures theirs. So it'll tell you a lot of different stuff. If you pick a face, it'll give you the area and all that good stuff. So it's a nice quick reference if you need to know it while you're actually creating the drawing. So that is all for this video. These two files are what it needs to be submitted for tutorial 5. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as, and just call it part 2 and hit save. And there we go. So if you have any questions, as always, you can see me during my office hours, or of course you can see me during class.